What is going on, my friends? It is your old pal Sean Pierce Johnson here, and welcome to the Season 10 finale of Stompbox Saturday. And what's interesting is this year we are bookending with the latest and greatest from my pals at Chase Bliss. We started the season with Generation Loss, and we end with Lossy. My goal in this video, like every Chase Bliss video, is to break the pedal down as simple to understand terms and concepts as possible. The knobs and switches really aren't that hard to wrap your head around. But I do want to make one warning because this seems to come up a lot every time I demo a Chase Bliss pedal. I front load this video with talking about what the knobs and switches do so that we have some sort of foundation to then work from. If this is something that annoys you, first off, I'm sorry that you are impatient like that. But if you must skip the introduction on what the knobs and switches do, go ahead and go to this timestamp right in the description box down below, and you can just get to hearing the pedal. But if you're like me and you think that having an understanding of what the things do before we start messing around with them is a good idea, let's talk about those knobs, those switches, and what exactly they do to our overall sound with Lossy. Starting with the 6 knobs at the top of the pedal, the top 3 are going to be filter, global, and verb, and then the bottom 3 are FREQ, speed, and loss. Now let's go ahead and work on those controls from left to right. And that makes logical sense because the leftmost controls are actually packaged together. They all affect the built-in filter on Lossy. Filter essentially is going to adjust the width, with the most counterclockwise portion being no filtering effect at all. And the more gradually you turn it clockwise, you start opening up that filter. Frequency adjusts where the center frequency of that filter is going to be. You can essentially play around with these two controls to find different low and high frequency emphases that you might want within your Lossy sound. And then slope is a 3-position toggle switch that effectively adjusts the slope of that filtering effect in different dBs per octave. For our next group, we can essentially take global, speed, and loss knobs and couple those with the packets and mode toggles to effectively call this the loss grouping. This is essentially the group of controls that's going to allow you the ability to adjust the overall loss of Lossy. The rightmost toggle switch is our mode toggle switch, and this is the mode of the loss effect produced by Lossy. 3 modes on the pedal exist, with the center one being standard. In the left position, this is the inverse of standard mode. So everything that gets taken away from your sound on Lossy in standard mode is going to be emphasized in this one. And then finally, the rightmost position is a jitter. This is where we start to hear a lot of inaccuracies in our audio, and there's maybe a few more audio effects added on to whatever it is that we dial in. In the center, we have the packets toggle. Now, the field guide basically just says it sets the packet mode, but what exactly is packets? It's hard to explain, and something that we should really hear rather than explain. So for now, let's just say that it kind of decides what kind of artifacts are going to be implemented into your effect. Above the mode and the packets toggles are the loss and speed knobs, respectively. Loss is the overall amount of degradation that your signal is going to get, and then speed is connected to the packets toggle in that this is going to be the speed at which audio is pulled out. Whatever effect you choose with the packets toggle is going to be applied at that rate. And then finally, we have global. Now, instead of this being like a mix control, you can think of it as how much of everything that you've asked Lossy to do is going to be added on to the sound. There's one last knob, and that is verb. And this is a wet-dry blend for a built-in reverb in Lossy. This is kind of nice because it helps smudge some of those harsher effects and might make things a little bit more friendly. But it hides a couple secret controls in it that I think are really fun. First off, by pressing and holding down on both foot switches, you can adjust the decay of that single knob reverb. However, my favorite thing is directly connected to a dip switch on the back of Lossy labeled all wet. Now, when this mode is engaged, you basically get a full wet mix of the reverb applied to the Lossy effect. but that then turns the reverb control into an analog mix control. Now, even if this were all we could do, that would be enough, but just like Mood, just like Generation Loss Mark IIs, there is an additional level of control when you press and hold down on the 2 foot switches on the pedal. Thankfully, those secondary controls are labeled in white underneath the pink writing for the main controls that the knobs are controlling. The global control adjusts the balance between the freeze effect and the live effect. Now, stock, it's set to full freeze, but if there's a point where you want to use the freeze as more of a layer on top of some live playing, you can utilize this control and bring it counterclockwise to then emphasize more of your live signal rather than just the frozen signal. The filter knob's secondary control is for the threshold of a built-in noise gate. Now, the FREQ control controls the threshold of a built-in limiter. Now we have 2 more gain staging controls on Lossy. The speed controls the auto gain. And basically what this is it's automatic gain compensation for the loss effect. And then finally, we have a loss gain. Now this is a gain stage for the wet effect on Lossy. Finally, we work our way to the simplest things, the foot switches. We have our bypass foot switch on the right. We have our center toggle to be able to store 2 presets and live mode. And then we have our freeze knob. Now, what's cool about this is you can effectively think of it like a sample and hold kind of thing. There's 2 different ways to go about it. We have solid state and we have slushy state, each very different from one another, but equally as fun. So what else do we need to know about Lossy? Well, for one, it continues the tradition of TRS ins and outs so that we can go full stereo whether we want to or not. The bank of dip switches has a host of great options to be able to further tailor this pedal to how you want to use it. Between the all wet mode, the latching mode, things like the dark mode, which gets the sound a little bit closer to the original Lossy plugin and also is a little, murkier sounding. Really, the options are limitless, and whenever the dip switches are engaged, I will certainly let you know. And we're about to dive into Lossy, but before we do, I want to give you a rig rundown so that you know exactly what you're hearing today. Now, some might argue the most logical starting place is your hands, but since you don't have that, we will just start with our guitar. Whatever you have, but I'm going to stick with my trusty Les Paul to get us going. Now, I'm actually using the very pedal board that I incorporated Lossy into my church gig the last couple times that I've played. Now, I'm going down into that pedal board on the floor, and there's a whole host of things on there. Too many for me to get into right now. But the most important thing that I want you to know is that I have all the pedals plugged into an Excel Audio Effects Command Center 8. This is essentially a programmable true bypass pedal looper that allows me to bring whatever pedals I want into a preset at any given point in time. I can bypass everything also if I want to. All that is running stereo into my Walrus Audio Mako ACS1 with my go-to amp combo, a Fender Twin style amp on the left and a Marshall Bluesbreaker style on the right. Out of the ACS1, we are going in stereo to Lossy, then out stereo from Lossy into my DAW. I'm just using my PreSonus Studio 192 preamps for this because they're fairly neutral sounding with no coloration whatsoever. I personally think the best way for us to get started hearing Lossy is to listen to all modes with a very standard knob setting. Now, when you plug in for first time and you check out the Chase Bliss field guide, it does recommend that you set Lossy like this, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna go between the 3 modes on the loss toggle and just take a close listen. We might adjust the global control a little bit just to see how that effect comes into our sound. But we'll start with global turned all the way up. Next up, let's take a listen to what the packets can do in each of the three modes. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the loss up to about 2 o'clock, and I'm actually gonna turn the speed back to about, let's say 10, 11 o'clock. We'll go ahead and start in standard, go through all three packet modes, and then do the same thing with inverse and jitter. This time I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of compression from my Walrus Audio Mira and a little bit of tone shaping from my Vertix Steel String Singer SRV. Now, I want you to tell me in the comments if you heard any difference in the effect when I was switching between the pickups on my guitar. If you did, I would love to know, because I'm hearing a little bit of that. This actually leads to a point I can make about Lossy. It's that it really does react to what you put into it. Although the effect is going to be roughly the same whether you're using a clean tone or a dirty tone, it does produce the effect in a different way if certain frequencies are emphasized. And speaking of frequencies, why don't we go ahead and check out the filter control. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the slope of the filter into its most subtle position, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go with jitter mode and no packet effect. But I think with the filter and the frequency, we're gonna be able to, although this effect will be on the more extreme side, give us something that is a bit more usable. And for the sake of just adding a little bit of extra something to the sound, let's go ahead and kick on the Keeley Echoes.
Five minutes later.
Now there's more to this reverb than meets the eye as far as it being a single knob reverb. And I don't just mean setting the decay by pressing and holding down on the 2 foot switches. There's actually a dip switch on the back that allows you to decide whether you want the reverb to come after all of the Lossy effects or whether you want that reverb to be part of Lossy's effect. There's one last thing I want to show you before we dive deeper into the settings on Lossy, and that is the freeze mode. Lossy actually has two, solid and slushy state, and they each do the freezing, sample and hold thing in very different ways. Each mode is indicated by a different color LED, with the red LED being your slushy state, and then green being your solid state. Solid state, that's going to be your more typical freezing effect, being able to play over the top of it and then shape the sound of it however you want with the controls that are available to you on Lossy. When you're utilizing the slushy state, which is indicated by the red LED, this is more of a continuously reoccurring effect, finding a way to, well, essentially create something that's always changing, ever evolving based on what you're throwing into it. So with that in mind, let's hear both states. First, we're going to check out slushy, since when you press on the foot switch, that is what comes up. But we will switch it over to the solid state and be able to do our thing in there. I think the most surprising thing to me about Lossy is the fact that the effect is so tweakable, with everything from what the knobs do without their secondary functions to those secondary functions, and then especially the filtering effects. You can really get something that can either enhance a part of a song to be something more accessible, or you can just go crazy, go avant-garde and all the way out there. But there's one very crucial question that I see amongst those who are interested in Lossy, and that is this: where exactly does this belong in the pedal chain? Well, for the entirety of this video, you've heard Lossy after my entire pedal board, and I think it bears repeating a scenario like that compared to incorporating Lossy into a pedal board setup. So what I want to do is I want to dial in a sound with Lossy. Nothing too crazy, but something that will definitely get the point across. And I want to hear it after everything like I've had it in the video so far. But then what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take a mono feed coming from my pedal board and go into Lossy. I'm going to flick the MISO dip switch, which stands for mono in, stereo out, and go out stereo to my Keeley Echoes, my Keeley Hydra, and then into the Mako ACS-1. We're going to compare and contrast the two scenarios and see whether or not there's anything else we might want to do for the Lossy incorporated into the pedal board as opposed to it being the end of everything. And then we'll also decide whether or not there are advantages or disadvantages of each. For the sake of just trying it out, let's switch the Lossy into the all wet mode now that it's running MISO. I hope that little audio-visual example was able to answer the question for you. Really, to me, it all comes down to playing Lossy, finding those sounds that you like, and then just placing it at different spots in your pedal chain in order to be able to decide whether or not it should be at the end of everything or incorporated into the bunch. And having answered that question and shown you everything else leading up to this point, that's what you need to know about Lossy in order to start making music with it. Of course, there are dip switches and a bunch of other stuff, but we're going to start incorporating those into my favorite settings. So to end this video off, I want to show you the sounds that I love most with Lossy. And there you have it, my friends. That is the season finale of season 10 of Stompbox Saturday, featuring the Chase Bliss Lossy. It's kind of funny that we've bookended this season with two pedals, not just from Chase Bliss, but two pedals from Chase Bliss that are both seeking to do relatively the same thing. My initial reaction to the release was wondering what exactly this pedal was and why would anybody really want to have those kind of artifacts and signal degradation from the early days of digital streaming. But I very quickly found out, because of all the work that not only went into making the Lossy plugin by Goodhertz, but then Chase Bliss's work taking that plugin and applying it to one of their pedal platforms, we really not only have a lot of those colors and those effects and artifacts that digital streaming used to have, but in a package that is infinitely tweakable, to the point where what used to be a shortcoming of audio now becomes a tool and a color that we can use to make music with, which I think is a pretty cool thing. But I think the biggest endorsement that I can give Lossy is the fact that it actually does work in a full band context. The last couple weeks I've played at church, the first week being at a more small campus neighborhood kind of church, and the other one being a much larger venue, larger congregation. Now, in both those instances, I was able to utilize Lossy to impart a different kind of color to accentuate certain parts of songs that we were playing in the set. And neither of those occasions were those sounds approached with any kind of apprehension. If anything, the people that I was playing with enjoyed what I was able to bring to the table. So the fact that Lossy gave me a brand new color to use in that context is wonderful. But now I want to turn the conversation over to you all and find out what you thought about Lossy. Is there a particular setting that you liked more than the others, or is there still a question about it that you might have? Whatever it is, feel free to leave it in the comment section down below. And I just want to say a huge thank you to you for watching this video. If you haven't done so already, please do click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. If you really enjoyed this video, give it that thumbs up and share a link to it with a guitar playing friend. It's all small stuff, but it really does help the channel grow. But if you'd like to go one step above that, become a member of my email club. Not only do I send all links to all my videos direct to your email inbox, email club members are entered into exclusive giveaways that aren't open to anyone else. There's a link to sign up in the description box down below. Thank you all so much for making season 10 a very eventful one. I can't believe I've been doing this almost 10 years now, but we're not done just yet. Come back next week and we will have our 2023 recap where I reveal my favorite pedal of the year. Until next week, I'm Sean Pierce Johnson, wishing you all watching great tone, great health, and of course, happy stomping. Cheers, friends. God bless.